Good morning, everybody. Bet you thought you'd seen the last of me, but no, I'm back for a Wednesday episode of GoJo Golic. Lots of awesome guests coming on the program today. Fran Brown, Syracuse football head coach, will be with us. We're going to have Zach Osterman join the program to preview the Indiana-Notre Dame game, and Charlotte Wilder on a Wednesday joining us for all the hot gossip. All that and more coming your way on GoJo Golic right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and back and better than ever, Jesse Cofield with us in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a fun show coming up for you guys. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Subscribe to the GoJo Golic YouTube channel so you can get all our great stuff there. As Jesse mentioned, having Charlotte Wilder here on an actual Wilder Wednesday feels like the ground should be moving underneath us here, a certain sign of a harbinger of things to come. But we'll get with that. We'll try and get some answers about the recruiting calendar in college football from Fran Brown. I think it's a great day, every day, to talk to Fran Brown. As we've seen throughout the years, he is one of the most comfortable college football coaches in front of a microphone that we have seen and had in this sport in a while. But in a time where we're debating what to do about this winter transfer portal, maybe he can offer us some solutions there. But Dad, speaking of solutions, apparently the Atlanta Falcons were feeling solution-oriented last night as we spent yesterday talking a lot about what they should do going forward, coming off a win where, hey, you get the dub, but it still doesn't look quite right with your older quarterback, Kirk Cousins, under center, who threw his first touchdown pass in 4 games, but also threw a bad interception to start the second half. And they decided to go ahead and pull the plug, Dad. They announced last night that from here on out, Michael Penix Jr., at the very least this week, would be starting for the Atlanta Falcons here. Ian Rappaport said that they are making the change and that Michael Penix Jr. is expected to take over at quarterback with Cousins getting benched. Now, Dad, we had heard from Raheem Morris in the last couple of days a little bit more vague about the position than he'd usually been coming off some of these bad Kirk Cousins games where he's affirming he's their quarterback and that they're going to go back to work and do the things around him here. So now that we've ultimately seen them make the move, Dad, was this the right time for it?
Well, I mean, you know, what makes a team or a coach make a move, especially on offense, especially at that position, is turnovers, right? Giving the other team extra possessions, stopping your own possession by turning the ball over. And in the last, 5 games, we have 9 interceptions and 1 touchdown. And the 1 touchdown came in the last game against Vegas in the 15-9 win. They're not scoring points, turning the ball over. And we had mentioned that, you know, if this was a veteran backup, the move may have been made sooner, right? but because it's a rookie, you're not sure. He can look good in practice, but it's still not in the games. You can say, okay, he seems to have it. So you're really kind of giving a veteran and a guy in Kirk Cousins who you gave, $100 million guaranteed, though the money situation going forward isn't bad for them, which we'll explain. You kind of give him the benefit of the doubt to kind of catch himself. And it just got too bad on the field. This is certainly way more about Kirk Cousins than Michael Penix coming in and saving the day. There is, and listen, I am one who said of the 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, I think Michael Penix will be the best. And obviously we have no idea if that's going to be true or not. So just going into what I'm saying is this is absolutely more, and obviously, about Kirk Cousins turning the ball over and failing than saying, okay, Michael Penix, lead us to the promised land. There's a bit of holding your breath because it's a rookie. He hasn't been in the fires when it counts yet as a quarterback. And you don't know how he's going to react. Again, he's been very he's played a lot in college like most of these quarterbacks, and we're finding that to be a big positive going forward with quarterbacks with a lot of experience. But there's still as I said, a holding your breath on what he's going to do. But it just was so bad on the other part, and they're one loss away from tying Tampa Bay, and they beat Tampa Bay twice, so a tie gets them in. So they are right in the thick of the playoff hunt with Tampa Bay. And the Falcons have the Giants, the Commanders, and the Panthers, 2 losing teams and a playoff team. So they are trying to get that tie with Tampa Bay to go and putting it on Michael Penix. This is a move that listen, I don't think anybody expected this, that Kirk Cousins, what he has especially done in the regular season in Minnesota and then signed him in Atlanta, they thought they were going to be taking a step forward. But boy, oh boy, these last 5 games, I don't know what has happened to Kirk Cousins.
Well, they made a bet on what version of Kirk Cousins they were going to get coming off injury, and that bet bounced back. And I think we've seen after this season, I wonder if going forward, we saw 2 teams in the New York Jets and the Atlanta Falcons both gamble on 35-plus-year-old quarterbacks coming off Achilles injuries and saying, hey, they'll bounce back and be closer to what they were. Even Kirk Cousins, he's more of a pocket passer than a guy like Aaron Rodgers, whose career was predicated on movement a little bit more. And these guys were not able to come back as the same players, whether it's all focused in on that or not. I do wonder if going forward that'll give people who may see quarterbacks who we know are playing longer than ever because of all the things of modern medicine and the way they approach the game, may give some people pause if a similar situation pops up again. Because, Dad, to your point, while it's not the most restrictive going forward, 4 years, $180 million and $100 million guaranteed is still a lot of money, especially when you then go out and put first-round capital into your backup quarterback here. And I think that's the other part of it is, you're right, with Michael Penix, there were a lot of people that loved him coming out of the draft. Clearly, the Atlanta Falcons felt highly about him, especially relative to the upcoming class of quarterbacks where you're always comparing, hey, if I've got an opportunity to get a guy now when we believe they're all good versus next year where it's a little bit more of an unknown, should I take that? So this gets sped up because the gamble that you made on Kirk Cousins really and his health did not come to fruition in this offense. And now to your point, Dad, in the midst of a season where you are very much in contention here, a rookie who might just go out here and play it a little safer ends up becoming, ironically, the option that you might prefer over the veteran quarterback who had just been giving the ball away far too much. So rare that we ever see that here, and will be interesting to make of this down the stretch. Dad, we got the chance to talk to Michael Penix Jr. a couple of weeks ago. Seems like an incredibly bright kid. Seems like he's approached this process the right way, trying to learn from Kirk Cousins. And we've seen multiple young quarterbacks, second-year players mostly, benefit from having that time to sit back and watch a little bit. Now, Michael Penix hasn't gotten to get the experience of going out there and getting his nose bloodied yet, but he's had plenty of time to sit, absorb this offense, view this season through Kirk's eyes, and prepare. And so maybe that will help give him a little bit of a leg up, and certainly the defense they're getting ready to face as well.
Yeah, and as far as Cousins' money, he got $62.5 million this season, and the team's on the hook for $27.5 million fully guaranteed next year. That's his $100 million guaranteed. So he's certainly a tradable commodity if anybody wants to take the chance. Now, as far as Atlanta, it's not going to change much as far as Penix is a pocket quarterback as well. He can scoot in and out of the pocket and make throws down the field, but he's not a runner by any means. So they're just looking to protect the ball. And now if this works, how genius does it look by Atlanta drafting Penix when everybody was scratching their head and going, what are you doing? You were kind of, playing both sides of the coin. Hey, maybe Kirk Cousins will still be viable for a few years, but boy, if he's not, we have our next quarterback. Because think about it. The Jets are looking for a quarterback, and this draft is not a great quarterback draft. The Jets are looking for a quarterback. The Giants are looking for a quarterback. Vegas is looking for a quarterback. Tennessee, they just benched Will Levis, starting Mason Rudolph. They're probably looking for a quarterback. You imagine if Atlanta was in that mix of looking for a quarterback when you're fighting for a playoff spot, your draft pick is not going to be very good. So they're sitting back there saying, yeah, we kind of knew what we were doing, though maybe they got lucky into this.
I was going to say, I don't know how much big brain credit I'm willing to give them when you spend 9 figures on a veteran quarterback in the same offseason you spend first-round draft capital on the other. I get solving the quarterback dilemma is there, but your eval of Kirk Cousins was the one thing that is massively off. So we'll find out how their eval of Michael Penix Jr. has gone here, but they mistimed the jump with Kirk Cousins here. They failed in that regard. And so, maybe you're being overly cautious around that position, but we've seen what that's done to their defense, the lack of investment on that side of the ball, and how much that's plagued them during this year. So lots of questions still in the balance. Again, but to your point, Michael Penix Jr. is never going to be a dual threat guy for anyone, but it's about being healthy enough to operate the offense, use the under center stuff that Zach Robinson, as a part of this McVay tree, wants to get in there, that Kirk's been uncomfortable with, that we've seen him throw interceptions as a part of all year long, and that ultimately seems to be the area maybe inhibited most by that. So will this allow them to get to even more of their base stuff and put the onus on this running back room that was the reason they won this last game, and can maybe be the reason behind that offensive line they win more games going forward, starting with the Giants this weekend. Speaking to a team that wants to get back to winning games, Jesse, let's get to Dan Campbell talking about what the Lions are getting back to eating at the training table around there in the Motor City.
Yeah, so many questions. You guys talked about this yesterday, but the Lions injuries have been piling up, right? Okay, still plus 475 for the Super Bowl. They might be losing players, having a lot of injuries, but their coach hasn't changed. Here he is on his radio hit.
You know what happens is, you win 11 in a row, and you lose, and then the sky falls. And I hate to say it, but we're not going to be able to win 11 in a row again for the rest of this season. We're just not going to be able to do it. And, what happens is you get used to eating filet, and I'm talking to all of us, and everything's good. Life's good, but you forgot what it was like when you had nothing and you ate your molded bread, and it was just fine, and it gave you everything you needed. And sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth and remember what it used to be like to really appreciate where you are.
So they just lost right to the Super Bowl favorites. So it's not like they lost to some down-and-out team. The injuries have been piling up, so that could be a problem. But I don't know. I kind of feel like this is just what they needed. They needed a loss to, relight the fire. What do you guys think?
Yeah, with Dan Campbell, Jesse, I actually sort of believe that they could weaponize this for good, just because he has been such a movie coach of a football coach since he got to the NFL. And I heard Dominique Foxworth talk about this yesterday. All of the cliches about football are true with Dan Campbell. He has actually got a team to buy into all of these things and work through it. And so there's part of me that certainly wants to believe that. But, Dad, there's another part that understands this is still a Jimmy's and Joe's league, and no one knows that better than Dan Campbell. And you watch a lot of that tape against Buffalo. There are no doubt plays on there where I'm like, well, maybe this is more of a Josh Allen thing than it is a Detroit Lions defense thing, because so many of the plays that Josh made are one-of-one plays that him and maybe 2 other quarterbacks in the league can actually make. But then you see them getting pushed around in the trenches, and I get Buffalo's offensive line is a really good unit, but I see that stuff, and I wonder if that's where the depth at linebacker that got picked on a bunch is going to be the area where there's just only so much you can absorb, especially at this level, where the top flight guys are usually great, and then behind that, it's a bunch of guys that are constantly churning through rosters.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it's a Jimmy's and Joe's league. And I talked about this yesterday. There's a 53-man roster. Is not a lot of players, especially when you have to delve into it. There is a difference between starters and backups, guys that are mostly special teams players that are now playing on the defensive side. So this is going to fall on the players. This is going to fall hard on Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator We saw when Aiden Hutchinson went out weeks ago that he resorted more to the blitz because they weren't getting the pressure. Now they've lost more D linemen. They've lost secondary. They've lost a ton. Again, they have the most defensive players on IR than any team in the league, and now they lose Montgomery on the offensive side. But this is going to fall heavily on Aaron Glenn on how he moves the chess pieces. Now it's always about putting your players in the best position, but at the end of the day, your players have to win their one-on-one battles. Now he really has to put his players in the best position because you have guys that are backups going against guys that are starters. So you're kind of playing, with one hand tied behind your back. So you may have to scheme it even more into your team's favor. And listen, if they see Buffalo again, it's going to be in the Super Bowl, right? Right. I mean, it was a 48-42 game, but it didn't seem that close. Buffalo seemed to dominate that game, and that's the Bills are the favorite right now for a reason. They're a damn good team, but you just love to hear Dan Campbell talk. Because when he talks like that, you don't just roll your eyes and go, "Oh God." You're like, "Okay, dude's serious. Dude's really serious about what he's saying."
Well, you love to hear Dan Campbell talk unless you are a radio producer that was sitting and squirming in the background, watching his host assure him it's going to be okay as Dan Campbell says, "I don't give a bleep about your dump button," and trying to save this segment so that we don't get fined. So you're fine with it if you're everybody else, but that one person who I'm sure was sweating it out as they went through that interview there. And Dad, it's interesting here to consider this group of injuries for the Detroit Lions and the effect that this has on the way that we perceive the playoff picture overall, because now they're tied with the Eagles for the second best odds to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. The Bills are plus 425. The Lions and Eagles are both plus 475. And obviously, in an ideal world, if both of these teams are the top teams, they'd be facing off as an NFC championship game to see these two teams. And I was one yesterday to think the Eagles now take a slight edge because of health and the way that this defense operates here. And so on one side, we have that injury, Dad. On the other side, we've got this. And I want you to weigh in on what you think is more impactful to the Super Bowl picture going forward, the Detroit Lions group of injuries or the Patrick Mahomes ankle injury. Here was Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes talking about the ankle of the greatest quarterback in the NFL.
We'll see how it works out for him. And if he can't work, then Carson will take those reps. I think this one's a little bit more day-to-day. Let's just see what he does, how he does, feels. I mean, he's always honest with me, so he's going to shoot me straight on it.
I mean, obviously we've put ourselves in good position to where I guess I wouldn't say it was dire that I play. I mean, it's something where it's not like in the AFC Championship game where we're playing to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, we have a little bit of room to kind of spare, but at the end of the day, we're trying to win. We're trying to win the football game, and I'm a competitor. I want to go out there and play. So I'll push myself to get to the best place possible over these next few days, and we'll be able to make a decision then.
Yeah, he can be as competitive as you want. You're getting ready to face the Texans, Steelers, and Broncos. So the Chiefs, Dad, weighing the calculus of how valuable the 1 seed is, how much wiggle room they have versus the importance of Patrick Mahomes' ankles. So first off, let's start there. Do you think if it is borderline that they should sit Mahomes this week and give him the chance to rest?
Oh, they should definitely sit him. They're playing on Saturday and then again on Wednesday. If you sit him on Saturday, then he's got till Wednesday against Pittsburgh to play. Mike, they could lose the last 3 games and still win the division. I mean, the one they proved last year they can go on the road and win. What's more important, Mahomes healthy or the 1 seed? That's not even a question. It's Mahomes being healthy, and they have plenty of time for him to be healthy for the playoffs. I think Detroit's in a much worse spot. Detroit has a bunch of defensive players that aren't coming back, that are on IR and are done for the year, including one of Knuckles of Sonic and Knuckles on the offensive side. So they're in much more dire straits. Hell, Detroit was a 1 seed. They could go to a 5 seed. They could go from a 1 seed and having a bye to a 5 seed because they play Minnesota the last game, and Minnesota could actually win the division and make Detroit a wild card. So I think Detroit's in definitely a worse spot. You have a very capable backup in Carson Wentz. And again, Mahomes will be healthy for the playoffs. That's all that matters.
Yep, and I think for that reason, the Detroit injuries do have the wider impact on the Super Bowl picture because they were viewed as the best team in the NFL for so much of this season. And now as we get toward the finish line here, a combination of other teams continuing to show up, play well, and their health going up against what Detroit's had an eroding foundation rapidly, that has opened the door for teams like the Eagles, the rest of the NFC North to all of a sudden feel like they have a chance. Whereas in the AFC, you're still going to have to beat that man 15 when it comes time for the postseason. That has always been a daunting task. Speaking of a daunting task, what to do about the December transfer portal? One coach has an idea next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. here with you guys. Another follow-up from yesterday. It is official. Michael Vick is taking the Norfolk State job. He's going to stay close to home in Virginia. You guys got into this yesterday. How do we feel about the move?
Yeah, listen, this was interesting considering the Sacramento State portion of this that had popped up and really dominated a lot of the attention, where there was the report from Adam Schefter that Sacramento State had $50 million committed to their name, image, and likeness pool going forward, and that as they're trying to join the new Pac-12, this was something meant to be enticing in that. And so that became the shiny object here, Dad, but lost in that was the report that, hey, Norfolk State and Michael Vick had apparently had a conversation first, and while sources confirmed to ESPN's Pete Thamel Tuesday that they were finalizing the deal with Vick, no Norfolk State officials were able to comment on Vick specifically when reached by ESPN. They said they would not release a statement Tuesday, but plan to release one soon, indicating they were going through the formal steps of the hiring process there. But, Dad, this is one to me, a cool one for Mike Vick, especially we've seen at this level of football, some more non-traditional coaches getting an opportunity to go and try their hand here. Obviously, it's great for PR for the school, and we'll see now what kind of football coach Michael Vick can be, what kind of program he can turn around and run here at a time where the sport certainly changed a lot.
Yeah, Norfolk State, an FCS program, and 20 miles from Michael Vick's hometown in Newport News, Virginia. so certainly closer to where he grew up. And what's also going to be interesting is you're probably, or at least what I've heard, is you're going to recognize a number of names of his assistants, meaning probably former ball players as well, probably maybe ball players who haven't coached either. So this is going to be a new experience for a lot of them. Now, again, it is a great face for a program, a popular face, a guy who played in the NFL for years, certainly obviously had his issues with the dogfighting, spent time in jail for that, came out of it, played again after that. But he will draw players to the team, at least to start, and then it will be about how they do on the field. But I'm excited for him. Again, you never know with players today. It seems like coaching is the least thing they want to get into, and they want to get into management or ownership, but especially a guy like Michael Vick, who was such a star and a quarterback in the league. But boy, I hope he does well. Obviously, you hope he does well for himself. You hope he does well for the players that he's going to coach. So we certainly wish him the best.
Yeah, certainly one of the most captivating football players of my lifetime, and I'm sure I would hope the name Michael Vick still resonates for players of this age and the opportunity they've got to be coached by a guy like that. It will be interesting, though, because it is a great unknown throughout all of this, and so we're going to sort of find out together exactly what the picture looks like for Michael Vick here, who, to your point, he'd been doing TV. Like, he understands what we know on this side is it's a lot easier and less stressful doing this job than it is doing that one. Michael Vick grew up and was around coaches his whole life. Like you and I, saw the lifestyle they lived and still thought, hey, I'll go ahead and check this out and try and make it happen. So we'll see what that looks like for him, because that was always the part, is that's an actual massive tonnage of workload and a lot of stress put on you to go and deliver for all those people. And you can penalize when you're wrong there. We could be wrong left and right here, as Vick's found out on TV, but they come for and play for keeps when all of a sudden when they start keeping track of wins and losses. So good luck to him. We will see how that one goes. Jesse, I want to look at something we talked about a little bit yesterday with the transfer portal window. We heard from Jenks Franklin a lot of complaints about the process there, and one coach seems to have offered up a solution for what we're going through now. Yeah,
apparently Rhett Lashley agrees, and he knows the solution here. So listen to his idea.
Not this way. I mean, it's terrible. I feel so awful for our kids and kids around the country. We talk about making a system that is all great for them, but we haven't. I mean, that's part of your job as adults, is to do what's best for young people, not what they want necessarily. And they don't want this. Yes, they want the ability to transfer and go where they want to go if they don't like their situation. Yes, they want the ability to make money on their name, image, and likeness. Neither one of those are bad things. There's no other sport at all that has free agency in the season. It's sad. It's terrible. You hear the story about their backup quarterback saying, "I don't have a choice." That's wrong. That's unacceptable. That's not okay. He shouldn't have to make that decision. Preston here is doing the same thing. Now, he has chosen to stay with us, and we're working with him, but it's still a juggling act for him. Oh, and let's not forget they're in finals right now. So, yeah, the real easy thing is you don't have a transfer portal in December. That's the real easy answer.
I mean, guys, it makes a lot of sense here. We shouldn't have these kids in a position where they're going, should I play in my bowl game? Should I play in my playoff game? Or should I transfer? And then, honestly, it is amazing that he's like, also, we can't forget, these kids are in school. They got their finals coming up. I was like, oh, right. Yeah, they're college kids.
The one thing that he said that resonates with me, and it's so true. The adults are supposed to make the rules that work, right? This is on the adults in what has turned into a portal NIL area where the NCAA adults have run from this and left it up to the commissioners. And everybody is looking at how to get their pot of gold, including the players who were given the right to do that now. The adults can't get this straight. The adults can't put guardrails on NIL, though they're starting to because of the lawsuit. It's the adults. He is so right about the adults are supposed to help make the rules and the decisions that are supposed to help the kids. And in this case, they're failing miserably.
Yeah, there's no doubt there, and that's because everyone's had to sort of go into CYA mode during this process as they all try and navigate a bunch of changes at once here. And so I think Rhett's certainly right in that regard, and he came on and voiced some of his displeasure with this when he was on with us not too long ago. But, Dad, the solution is something that's interesting here, because Andy Staples over at On3 wrote about this the other day, and he pointed out from a product standpoint, from an entertainment value standpoint, college football is one of the few sports that has free agency, their postseason, all of these different banner events operating at the same time here. You could argue the draft with National Signing Day too, all in the same month window, and you don't spread any of that out and get any bang for your buck. And so what he proposed was moving the portal window back into February, because as he pointed out, the semester system, the way that schools operate their calendar, that's not going to change for football here. School's too big of a business. And so do you change that around and really tweak the whole offseason of the sport? And I think the more and more when you hear coaches talk about this who are trying to find solutions for this, and Rhett Lashley said, you've heard all of us in the coaching industry say this offseason calendar is untenable for a while. And, Dad, I talked to coaches this year doing games that have said, spring football, as long as you've got a spring transfer window, is largely useless because you're practicing with a bunch of guys that may not be there after that was done, and it's changed the way people have thought about that area. And so what Andy offers up, and what I think is interesting to consider going forward, is break the wheel on that side of things. The season won't change. You got all the stuff going with the playoff now, but in the offseason, change it to be more like the NFL. Instead of having spring practice, make it more like an OTA and minicamp system that we see in the league. Move that stuff back. Allow the portal to be a little bit later here. You're going to have to figure out how that works with enrollment for the spring semester and all those different things, but create a system where players aren't forced during bowl season to make this decision. You can enter the portal after, go through all of that when you've actually got time to take a second and catch your breath, and then move everything back in the spring. I think Andy is spot on with that why can't we, and college resists this so much for reasons that I don't always understand, mimic more of our NFL counterpart and say, hey, they got an offseason structure that works based on the things that we know here. Why don't we put a little bit more of that in place, since that seems to be where we're going anyway?
Yeah, college hates to mimic NFL rules. They try and stay so far away from it, and it's childish is what it is. I mean, didn't the one signing date for high school kids used to be, or still is, it's secondary one in February, right? I mean, that's the time to do all this. I think it's a great idea, because while we're always going to be a player-first show because we were players, you talk about, and Rhett talks about how hard it is on the kids and the decision they have to make. Well, it's hard on the coaches as well. Not that I'm going to say sit here and feel sorry for the coaches, but you're making it hard on everybody. So it's during bowl season while you're practicing, forgetting the playoffs because most teams aren't in the playoffs. You're still getting ready for a bowl, and you have to worry about the transfer portal. Playoff teams are getting ready for the playoffs, and they have to worry about the transfer portal. Do it in the off season, February. Make that the signing day for the high school kids, and the portal, when the portal opens. This is when it's kind of during winter workouts, when you get to take a step back a little bit and you're not so engrossed in the season, in the actual season going on. And then, as Jesse mentioned and Rhett mentioned, God forbid they have tests as well. I mean, there is an academic side to this that is not going to change. So as you said, they're jumbling everything into the month. I mean, why? It makes too much sense to put it in February. And you're right. Make spring ball like OTAs. It just seems like the right thing to do for everybody, so everybody can kind of take a breath and not put everything in one collective box in the month of December.
I do think you mentioned the school portion of things. That's something that's been batted about for a while now, of how much longer will that last as this increasingly becomes the NFL's junior product. And would the names be licensed to schools? Would people be required to go to class if all of a sudden this truly becomes an employment deal for college football players? It's probably still a way off, although I hesitate to say that with anything in the sport and how fast it changes right now. But we're due for an overhaul. We have been for a while. You've heard coaches going back to coming off the pandemic, in addition to roster constraints that got messed with because of the added COVID year for players that went through that. The other thing was the recruiting calendar coming off the pandemic, where they made so many changes to try and account for what was going on then that didn't go away, is basically a nonstop year-round grind. And for them, between the transfer portal players and the high school players, it allows you almost no time to catch your breath. And so I think at some point this was always going to get too big tonnage-wise to handle for people in the offseason. So I think that's where the change has to come there, Dad. They've got to try and find some way to meet the modern game where it is in the offseason by impacting that schedule. And I think Andy is really onto something with that idea. Thinking about it from a player standpoint, because that's really what I care about most, it may not curb bowl opt-outs overall. Like, there still may be players that say, hey, instead of playing in the Poinsettia Bowl, I would rather get myself ready, because I know I'm going to be hopping in the portal in February based on what's gone on with my season. But this is one of those situations, and I know you talk about from a collective bargaining standpoint, hey, we don't want to make decisions for the many based on the actions of the few. And if there's a few players in the college football playoff being negatively impacted by this, they shouldn't drive this. But at the same time, we know when it comes to rule changes in the NFL and across a lot of sports, it takes primetime examples of things happening in order to make rules better for everybody. And I do think this is one of those spots where players with a legitimate championship opportunity should not have to leverage their present success against their future opportunity in the way that happens right now unnecessarily in the sport. And Dad, you look around the sport, there are plenty of people that are grappling with the realities of this right now. USC, Zachariah Branch and his brother Zion both entering the transfer portal for Southern Cal. They've had a whole bunch of guys hop in there right now, and they're one of the teams. I think, Dad, you know what this allows you, the transfer portal now, is it really seems to be maybe a canary in the coal mine for program culture and some of the things that are going on when you see in totality how many people are going out, how many people are coming into a program as kind of indicative of the health of that team coming off a season.
Well, we've reached the absurd, right? I mean, there are breaking points. We've reached the absurd with Marshall. The Marshall coach is the new Southern Mississippi coach, and basically every player on Marshall went in the portal. A lot of them are going to end up at Southern Miss. They had to opt out of a bowl game because they don't have enough players. I mean, what signifies something's wrong with this when when players are allowed to move? The adults have to figure something out. We have reached absurdity that an entire college program, players went in the portal and they had to opt out of a bowl because they don't have players.
Honestly, Dad, that's the part I agree with a little more, just because those players signed up to play for a coach that is no longer there.
Yes.
I'm glad they have recourse to get out of that situation here. But you are right. All of this has changed so drastically and made it really difficult for a lot of people to get their arms around these problems here. So, again, we will wait and see. I think Andy Staples offered up a pretty good solution on how to try and go about changing this and figuring out what the sport looks like going forward. What the sport looks like going forward still involves plenty of great football to be played this winter. Coming up next, we'll visit with one of the most impactful coaches in college football season and see if he has any solutions to the big problem facing the sport. Next on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield here. Very excited to welcome in our next guest, Syracuse head coach Fran Brown, the man who coined the phrase winners get washed and took college football by storm this season. Syracuse 9 wins this year, getting ready to play Washington State in the Holiday Bowl on Friday the 27th. So, Coach, congratulations on a first season up at Syracuse. How you feeling this morning?
I feel good. I'm blessed to be woke. Excited to be on here with you guys. You know, you guys are legends. So very thankful to be on here. I hope one day to be working with my son side by side. I think there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, well, that's what you'd think, Coach.
Cool,
but you know what? Yeah, it's what you'd think, except when your son doesn't treat you the way he should treat you. So I've gone through that. So be prepared for that.
I got you.
Yeah, no, I think Coach will be prepared for anything at this point because that's sort of in the job description for you, Coach. So walk me through what this year has been like for you overall. This is a sport that we were just talking about in the last segment, has absorbed so much change in the rules around it, the playoff format in the last couple of years. So from when you took over the job to now, sitting here, coming off signing day, getting ready for bowl season in the midst of the portal here, what's maybe been the biggest change for you in terms of what you've learned on the job here?
Honestly, the biggest change for me was we got our butts whipped versus Pitt, and we were down 21-0 early. And I wish I could have went and grasped our team and got everybody together and talked to them and tell them who we are and don't forget all the work we put in January, February, March, because that's what makes you a championship team, and that's what we're about. Let's not forget that. And we were able to do that when we played against Miami. And that was like the biggest change for me, that I learned how to coach in game. You know, learned how to get our whole team to rally behind each other, believe in each other, and just focus on one play at a time. That was the biggest change. But honestly, this is like a repeated cycle. When I got the job last year, I come here, there was all types of portal things going on, players, you sign players, you're getting everything. So it's like it's happening again. Only thing you feel, oh, no, I'll be good next year. No, this gets worse. You know what I mean? It gets worse because there's different ones that you wouldn't expect to go into the portal. And then there's people going in the portal, other places where you want to go. And I just tell my staff, we just got to relax. But, you know, I would say it's happening again. The biggest change for me was learning how to coach in game and being able to keep our team calm. When we're up by a lot, be even kill. Just stay focused. When you're down, be even kill. Stay focused. What's next? You know, just that's probably the biggest change for me.
Yeah, after the loss to Pitt, you won 4 of your last 5, including that game against Miami, the last regular season game. Is it difficult as a coach in this new era, especially of the portal, when players want to leave to not to try not to take it personal because it just happens so often?
Well, so I don't take it personal because that's their decision, but it hurts with certain kids when you love them, right? Like I had a corner go in early on, and I already seen it coming. Like, you know, you're not slow. Coaches just don't want to accept what's there, right? Like, when you and your wife going through a lot of BS and you know at some point y'all getting divorced, when it comes you won't be all down, you had a long time to fix that, right? So it's certain ones that I seen, but like I just had a kid go in the portal that I truly, truly love. Not saying we can't replace him, but I love this kid, just went in the portal, and it's like, dang, that just hurts because of the love and you know what you want to do with him to help him be successful in life. But outside of that, I mean, this business is easy. Like I always look at this, and I said it to you a little while ago. Did this kid play the entire year? When he didn't play, did you win? And if you won, you really don't need him. So you just got to be able to focus on that, right? Can he be replaced? Because to me, nothing's bigger than the S, right? That's what the school, there was football before me, there'll be football after me. Am I going to leave the school better than I found it, right? Like Jim Brown played here, Ernie Davis played here, Marvin Harrison played here. So, like, there's been Hall of Famers that play here. So, Art Monk's jacket is right behind me. So, like, you have guys that played in the Hall of Fame that play here. So, history will always repeat itself. So, I don't think as a coach I see a lot of dudes kind of take it personal. And it's part of the game. You want to go ahead. And then watch us win. You don't have to be here, but we're going to win with or without you. That's just what's going to happen. So, I don't take anything personal at all. It just hurts when you love a kid, right? Because I coach with everything I have. So there's certain kids that like, Jaden Bellamy just left. I truly, truly love him. Can we win? without Jaden Bellamy? Heck yes, we're going to win without Jaden Bellamy, right? We have other kids coming in that are bigger, stronger, faster. So, like, we'll be fine. But I still love that kid, and I wanted to be a part of his development to go become a man, you know?
Coach, I think your authenticity and your confidence is one of the big reasons why players are going to continue to be attracted to you guys. What attracted you to Syracuse? Why was this place, with all the history that you just mentioned, a place that you think you can truly build a winner at the way you have this year?
I mean, it's 4 hours from where I was born and raised at, Northeast. I'm a Northeast kid, understanding everything up here, knowing that so one of my childhood guys that I looked up to was Donovan Darius. He was from the same city that I was born and raised in. He played at Syracuse. This is the first place I ever got to go to a college football game when they played in the Meadowlands against Wisconsin back in 97, something of that nature. So it just kind of all worked full circle. You know what I mean? It's just things of that nature. Knowing Donovan McNabb played here, just knowing all the history when in school, when you start to look at it, and just knowing what I believe in myself. I'm truly faith-driven, and knowing that if I got an opportunity to be a head coach, especially at a Power 4 school up north, we're going to have a lot of fun. You know, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I know all the kids. The kids know who I am. We know what each other about. I got a 20-year-old son, right? So I'm still listening and doing the same thing. I listen to the same music they listen to. In all reality, I actually put our players up on music. You know what I mean? I try to tell them what's right and what's not right. So, I mean, I'm just in. I'm in with the new wave, so I understand the new wave, so it's a cool thing.
Even though, and the new wave isn't going anywhere, it is going to continue. But Rhett Lashley, the coach at SMU, said there are things that can change. You could move the transfer portal out of December, where bowl games are going on, finals are going on, everything's going on, to February when less is going on. So while we know the system is not going to change and you have to adapt or die, do you think they could tweak it to benefit both coaches and players?
Nah, keep it right where it's at. Make everybody work. Guys want to make it simple and easier and let's just do it here. I ain't got time to worry about that in February. I'm trying to celebrate President's Day and Valentine's Day and all that. Don't mess my February up. My birthday in February, Michael Jordan's birthday in February. We ain't got time to mess February up. February's been going well. Keep it right where it's at. Make us all work. It's chaotic. It's a part of the game, though. Everybody wants to keep changing things at different times. Next year I plan on, God willing, we're in the playoffs, and you still just got to work through the system, right? It's just a part of the game. It's going no matter when you switch it, it's going to become a pain, right? So I just rather it be a pain right there, and it's all a part of the game. And then we go into the New Year's. Still had a portal, but February is quiet. It's damn, we got 1 month that's ours. Let's not go and change it where it's not ours, right? I like my wife, right? So I want to stay married. So don't go switching this BS into February. You know what I'm saying? Then I got to be on the road and talking to this kid, and I'm stressed. I'm sitting up all night because he want to go on the port. I ain't got time for that in February, man.
All right, we're keep Fran Brown's February safe is our new motto around here on this show, based on that feedback here. Yeah, no. All right, Fran, I want to talk about one of your players. You talk about guys that you could win with this year. Kyle McCord, your quarterback, showed himself very early on to be a guy that you guys could win with, and he was someone that Ohio State, his former school, clearly thought they could win without, and have found out in different ways maybe that wasn't true. What impressed you most about Kyle McCord and getting to work with him during this season for you guys?
His leadership, his ability to understand what it is to be a coach and a player. He just truly understands the message that I give him. He passed towards the team. So it went Fran Brown, Kyle McCord, then it was the coordinators. Because both sides of the ball got love the quarterback. That's why this next guy that we get, or whatever we end up doing, freshman, however it goes, it's really important that he set the standard so high that they have to be a pro, right? It's just who he was off the field, not just what he did on the field. I know every game he passed for over 300. All-time leading passer at our school. He'll probably break the ACC passing record in our next football game. But outside of him being that great of a football player, he's just a dynamic leader, and he interacts with everybody. Everybody loves him. You know, no matter who it is, from the ladies in the kitchen cooking, all the way down to just our equipment manager. And he treats everybody with respect, right? Because really, in all reality, it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. And he truly exemplified DART for us, which was our core values, being detailed, accountable, relentless, and tough. I couldn't have asked for a better guy to come here and lead our program. And I'm so thankful that, we're connected. That's my little brother for the rest of our lives, and I truly love that kid. I mean, he's a great kid. He's a great leader. I'm not sure why he's not involved in more of the awards and things of that nature. I was told by someone, I don't know if he'll get drafted. And I said, okay, you and I will no longer have another conversation. I don't want to talk to you anymore, but you just even thinking that because you're obviously either insane or delusional, and I don't want to continue to do that and go in circles,
So,
No, completely.
so in 9
understand
days,
that.
you're playing the Holiday Bowl against Washington State. How do you treat a bowl game, from playing young players to the practices? How do you treat it?
The best man get to play. We competing our butts off. You watched us in practice yesterday. This is the game week, because next week, when you go to a bowl site, you got all the theatrics and all the things you got to do with the other team and handle that. So we full tilt right now, getting ready to. We're praying. We're ready to play them. We're practicing our butts off to have the opportunity to go out and compete, to get a 10th win, but to also make sure that you guys can see the best version of ourselves. I think that in December, the better teams continue to show and they continue to rise, right? November was for contenders. We showed that we're a contender. Now in December, these seniors are staying and playing because they want to make sure the guys understand that you will play in December and after Christmas from here on out. So it's important now we get a chance to be in the playoffs. So it's this is a big game for our program. This isn't just hey, we get to be in the bowl game, we're gonna go down there and chill. Hey, make sure you put the freshmen in. Like, guys, you got to earn it to play, because at some point those freshmen going to be seniors and juniors, and they're not just going to want to throw guys in to keep them around, right? And I'm very, very upfront with our guys. So, like, I encourage you to go in the portal if this is too hard for you. Like, I encourage you to do that, because it won't change, and the standard here is only going to rise. Like, next year, January, February, March, is going to be extremely hard for you to come and play. Like, it's going to be really hard, because I got to put you through it, because that's where the championships are won at, right? So we're working our butts off, because this is big for our program. This is big for the seniors. A lot of our seniors have never won a bowl game, and we want to make sure they do win a bowl game, for them to go and win a 10th game for them. Like, everything's about them. Like, so we got a lot that needs to be done for our seniors. They did a great job. And then for our freshmen and sophomores and juniors, because this is the first game of the 2025 season, right? The seniors are staying to play with y'all, so we could truly pass the torch to you guys for us to keep it moving and being able to go on. So, I mean, this is big for all of us, man. I'm very thankful that we get a chance to play in the Holiday Bowl, right? It's a Tier 1 bowl, they say, so things of that nature. I'm excited about that, but really wish we were playing this Saturday. It's something that I wanted to do, but we fell a little bit short. So I got to become a better coach. I got to put more pressure on our coaching staff, so that way next year we're playing in this game.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Coach. And I think based on the trajectory you guys are on and the way that you approach this, it's not going to be soon before long that that's a reality for you in the Syracuse football program. So, Coach, congratulations on all the success in year one. It's been a ton of fun to watch here. Best of luck in the Holiday Bowl, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon, all right?
Hey, listen, I'm very thankful to be on here. I appreciate everything you guys have done. Maybe one day y'all got to get Fran and Fran Jr. on the show with you guys to mess around, so I can see if we get the same thing going on, all right? Now, you guys be safe. God
That'll
bless
work.
y'all.
Thanks,
Peace
Coach.
out.
Appreciate
Likewise,
it.
Coach.
See ya.
Absolutely. No, we'll have to get that happen, man. Well, I mean, listen, if Fran Jr. has got his dad in a place where he is a value add to the locker room music conversation, that automatically puts him in the top 1% of coaches, because God love him, my former head coach, Charlie Weiss, his contribution to our pregame song list was Who Let the Dogs Out. And it was hard to look other teams in the eyes when that came on in the pregame track. So if Fran's contributing more than that there, it is a win for everybody involved there. Certainly infectious energy around that. I love you, Coach Weiss. Infectious energy around that Syracuse football program. Coming up next, we'll look ahead to the games being played that he mentioned on Friday and Saturday in the college football playoff. Next on GoJo and Golic.
Football news, and we haven't even talked about the match yet. Come on. Rory and Scotty defeated Bryson and Brooks out in Las Vegas last night. They never trailed. And guys, like some NFL teams, we are already looking ahead to February and April. Odds up on the DK Sportsbook for the Waste Management. Scheffler, the heavy favorite there, sitting at plus 350. And of course, the Masters, okay, plus 400. Crazy odds there. Might want to jump on some of those plus odds while we have it. We're looking forward to golf season here. We also look forward to Notre Dame and Indiana on Friday. I know the guys are. Zach Osterman stopping by to help us break it all down. That's coming up next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of GoJo and Golic here. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. Jesse Cofield here with us. Hour number 2 is going to have Charlotte Wilder stopping by here to help us look at the NBA Cup from last night. Congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. Go ahead and get it done here. What a rebound for them on the season, too. I feel like we had kind of left them off to the side the way we did in the offseason after a little bit of a slow start. But ever since then, they've been rolling. They now get to hang a banner and get things done here. So Charlotte going to join us to talk about that. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star hopefully going to join us here in a couple minutes as well to look at the Notre Dame-Indiana game this weekend from a different vantage point. We felt like we had talked so much Notre Dame on here. Kurt Signetti, Google me. That program deserves its love. And so Zach, one of the best in covering Indy, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do just that here. Jesse just mentioned in the last segment, though, Dad, we had the showdown last night with Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka on one side, Rory McIlroy and Scottie Scheffler on the other side here. And you and I both watched a little bit of this. My biggest takeaway continues to be there aren't enough things that we can involve Charles Barkley in around the game of golf because he so perfectly occupies that everyman role of asking all the questions that all of us wonder about golf played at the highest level here, but may never have the opportunity to ask. And Charles certainly has the bona fides to go and sit in any room, and listening to him talk about golf is really a lot of fun. But then on the other side, man, these golfers looked miserable out there in the cold trying to deal with this and play at night, which none of us could ever do.
You know, there aren't many things. If you're going to watch a game or something, you doesn't matter who the announcer is. You're going to watch the game. Charles Barkley is one of those that you turn it on for him. Like I've kind of grown out of these golf matches, but I turned it on because I wanted to hear what he had to say. But you're right. The guy, it was like in the mid-50s and they looked miserable. And God forbid you play on a course that's lit up at night. I mean, can you imagine the average golfer? That's what I mean. I'd rather see the celebrities play the average golfers as they're hunting for their ball, you know, because you know the pros are for the most part going to hit it, though. On the hole I watched, the par 5, 2 of them hit it into the woods. But I turned it on for Barkley. I mean, just like the TNT pregame show is the greatest, and halftime show is the greatest sports, you know, desk show there is, you know, with all those guys, and you turn it on for them. So, yeah, like I said, I've kind of grown weary of those matches, especially when they're all pro golfers, when you kind of know what you're going to get. And I know we talked about the Skins game is coming back next year. And as I said, you want to make that exciting, make it be their own money. Even though they all make a lot of money, you don't want to lose your own money, but they're not going to do that. So it is interesting how they do make that. And obviously it's for primetime action to be able to everybody to see it. That's why it goes into the nighttime and you got to light up the hole.
Yeah, that was the interesting part to me, was the timing of it all and the fact that it got to that point. But you're right. It was one of those things I wanted to be more excited about it than I was watching it. I appreciate more access to some of the best players in the world. There's an easy joke to be made about Rory McIlroy winning a tournament when there's no stakes attached to any of this, actually, going into some of the ones that Jesse mentioned in that last segment. So it's interesting every way you slice it, but either way, something fun to do as counter-programming to what we had going on in the NBA Cup the other night here. What we've got coming up this weekend, though, box office in college football here. And for more on that, as we look ahead and start to preview, again, we've got the games coming up Friday and Saturday in the first round of the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. We know that is going to be a market change for many people. So we're previewing every game every day of this week. We did SMU and Penn State yesterday. And for more on what we've got coming up with Notre Dame and Indiana here, excited to head out and talk to Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Does a great job covering all things Indiana there for them. Zach, good morning, man. How you doing?
Hey, sorry about this weird angle. I'm just, it's raining pretty hard here. I'm trying to not slide off the road into the creek. I apologize.
No, we would like to keep you safe during this process.
But no, thank you for having me. And sorry about the hoarse voice as well. I've been under the daycare flu for the last week. So we're battling on multiple fronts here in sunny Bloomington, Indiana.
So game day is going to be a relief for you then, based on how this has gone. Walk me through what that feeling's like. You're battling through it right now. What has it been like covering game week around this Indiana program, as already in year one with Kurt Signetti, they're getting ready for their opportunity to play for the ultimate prize?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting to watch how, as you'd imagine, it's grown. And you rewind back to the FIU game week 1 and Kurt Signetti making some comments about, the crowd not really being as big as he wanted and then kind of disappearing at halftime. And listen, that's, kind of a proud Indiana tradition. But just kind of like steadily watching the fan base almost through crowd size, through attendance, through how long they stayed, through, just the energy in the stadium, buying in a little bit more and a little bit more. I think the big one was Maryland. Maryland wasn't quite a sellout, but the remnants of Hurricane Helene had settled over southern Indiana, and it was windy, it was rainy, it was not good conditions for watching a football game outside. And there were still about 48,000 people there, and they stayed the entire game. There was a clear sort of appreciation after that game between the fans and the team. And I think from there, they sold out Nebraska after that. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And I did a story recently on all the kind of added revenue that Indiana's already realized from just selling more tickets, getting more fans and seats for football games. And the sort of amusing piece was Indiana hasn't sold any more parking passes because it always sells all its parking passes because the fans always turn up and tailgate. But this is the first year that they have really, en masse, gotten them into the stadium, kept them in the stadium, and it's created a real home field advantage here.
And listen, certainly Indiana being good for the first time in a long time, Kurt Signetti is not satisfied with just making the playoffs. He obviously is pushing for this team to make a dent in the playoffs, and that's going to have to go through Notre Dame at Notre Dame. So looking at this game, it seems pretty obvious the matchup is the top 10 in the country Notre Dame rushing attack against the best defense against the rush in Indiana in the land. This is, in your mind, I'm sure the biggest matchup there is.
I think that's fair. And from Indiana's perspective, they've seen some decent teams running the football. And you look at that number, and I think Indiana's been really good at the line of scrimmage defensively this year. But I also sometimes have wondered, is that number game state a little bit when you've got an offense that scores, kind of for fun? If you're not counting the second half against Michigan in the Ohio State game, Indiana's made a lot of teams chase them on the scoreboard. Is the run defense a product of line of scrimmage dominance? Is it a product of teams abandoning the run because they feel like they got to throw the ball to keep up with Indiana? And Indiana's also not seen a quarterback like Riley Leonard. Indiana's seen some good running backs, again, some good schemes running the football, but Indiana's not seen a team that is going to be intentional about running its quarterback and involving its quarterback in the run game the way that Notre Dame does. And so there's kind of like a dual challenge there in terms of, especially if the weather is a little weird. And I think we all know what the weather in South Bend can get like. I lived up there for a year after college, and as an Atlanta native, forgive me, it's a wonderful part of the state, but never again. And it just, I can't do that kind of snow, not on short notice, but you kind of wonder if this game is colder, if it is snowier, if there is precipitation, does this come down to really just ground game, ball control? And if that's the case, can Indiana stay disciplined, keep on its keys when it's got to account for the quarterback in the run game in a way that it really hasn't had to yet this season?
You mentioned the potential effect of weather there. One of the big sells for Indiana offensively, certainly that passing attack led by Curtis Rourke. How do you think that group matches up with the Notre Dame pass defense that's statistically been one of the best in the country most of the season?
And that's it's kind of fascinating to talk about the strength on strength both ways in this game, because Notre Dame has been so good really in the last 2 years against the pass. But I don't think it's unfair to point out that Notre Dame has played this season a lot of teams that don't throw the ball very much or very well. When you talk about, either teams that don't throw it very much like Army and Navy, I'm not picking on them, please understand. But I don't think it's unfair to say Purdue doesn't throw it very well. Georgia Tech is not a throw offense really. And I know Notre Dame didn't face Haynes King in that game, but that's still a run-based offense, still kind of a power offense. I don't know if Notre Dame has seen a ton of teams that want to throw the ball quite the way Indiana does, quite as sort of spread out and aggressive and, isolate one-on-one matchups, whether it's in the slot or on the outside. Curtis Rourke has been so efficient for most of this season. And Indiana's got to answer the question of whether or not it can protect him. Again, when you look at kind of those 6 quarters between the end of the Michigan game and the Ohio State game, but I think if you're Indiana, as much as this stuff matters, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, I suspect Indiana will at least feel good about having gotten the experience of that Purdue game. Rourke played well in that game. It was snowing in Bloomington. It was very cold. And so you at least kind of maybe have a little bit of experience to draw from of playing in those conditions, dealing with those conditions if that's something you're going to be facing, not just cold, but I think precipitation is probably when it would get to be more of a problem, both in terms of maybe a slick football and also if it's snowing hard in terms of, can you process what you're seeing quickly through the snow? If you're a quarterback, can you make your reads? Can your eyes move quickly when you kind of got that distraction in front of you? I think Indiana will at least hope that the experience of that Purdue game, playing it in the snow, playing it in the cold, helps them if that's a factor in this game. But listen, if it's snowing the way it can snow, and we don't know, right now it seems like it's kind of a 50-50 proposition whether or not it's going to snow for this game. So it may not. But, we all know how quickly the sort of forecast can change. The closer you get to the lake, it can be clear one day, and by the next day, the forecast is for 6-8 inches. It can come down in buckets. It can come down in a hurry. There may just be a world where Indiana's got to play through a part of this game if it does snow where I don't want to say abandon the past, but they've just kind of got to recognize what they can and can't do when the weather allows it.
So Indiana back in the national spotlight after not being in it for so long. What's the ability of them to have staying power in the years to come to stay up there?
I think being in the Big Ten helps, especially as we move kind of into the revenue sharing era. I don't know if it's an era. Nothing feels like an era anymore at all. It's also abbreviated. Excuse me. But obviously having Big Ten resources, Big Ten facilities, the ability to staff at a level that, you're not going to want for money, basically. And what I would say too is, Indiana, in no small part because of Curt Cignetti's success, has been able to more aggressively fund its NIL strategies around football. And well, listen, I recognize this will always, to some extent, culturally be a basketball fan base. It is still, like a lot of Big Ten schools, a very, very large fan base. It's a land grant school. It's 40,000 plus students every year. They've got one of like the 6 or 7 largest living alumni bases in the country. The point is, there are fans out there and donors out there to engage to keep those numbers healthy as long as Indiana's winning. So I don't think necessarily anybody around here is looking at this season, Curt Cignetti's new contract, all the success that's sort of been realized in the last 12 months and saying, okay, this is the expectation now, forever and I. But I do think there is optimism, and I think it's justifiable optimism, that Indiana can be a more consistently competitive team, that the floor for Indiana is more like consistently in bowl games, consistent winning seasons, consistently kind of holding serve at home. And then maybe in the years where either you strike it hot with your mix of internal development guys and portal players,
yep,
or a year like this where maybe you get a slightly more forgiving schedule, you can put together something a little bit more special. I don't think anybody around here expects Indiana to turn into Penn State overnight. I just think that people believe, probably rightly, that Curt Cignetti can get Indiana to a place where it's winning more consistently than it has. I mean, maybe at any point in its history, but certainly since Bill Mallory's tenure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think everyone from the outside looking in sees that nothing about this feels like a flash with Curt Cignetti at the helm, but this year one production certainly been an incredible ride to watch from the outside, and that ride lands you back in South Bend, Indiana, for better or for worse this weekend. Zach, have a safe rest of your drive, man. We appreciate the time today, all right? We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Rare is the day where we actually get a Wilder Wednesday on a Wednesday. But folks, don't let the first segment of the second hour fool you. Charlotte Wilder is joining us for a Wilder Wednesday on a Tuesday on a Wednesday for the first time in a while. How we doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much. I know, I'm thrilled. Look, who knows? Maybe a Wilder Wednesday, return to Wilder Wednesdays in 2025 is just what we need to like make the universe make sense again. Not to toot my own horn, but it's a pleasure to be here on this NBA Cup championship hangover, shall we say?
Yeah, I was going to say, how are you dealing with coming off the Milwaukee Bucks? Charlotte, kind of putting a cap on their season resurgence so far as we get towards, that Christmas Day marker that's always sort of existed for the NBA here. What did you make of them really going out and thoroughly handling the Oklahoma City Thunder last night?
I mean, I was shocked. Even in the third quarter when they started pulling away, I was like, no, the Thunder have this. They're the young team. They're the best. And I think too, like with the Bucks, they started out 2-8 and they've played really well their past couple games. But it felt like the Cup was this test, which I think is interesting because maybe that's what this will become. I think we've talked before about how the NBA Cup could be a great way for young teams to get playoff, air quotes, type experience or to be in a game that matters. But I think more than ever, actually, it might be a chance for veteran players to flex and be like, no, I'm still here. I mean, if you look how the Lakers won last year, how the Bucks won this year with Giannis and Dame. And, I think it came down to a few things, which is that they just have more experience and, it's a knockout game, best of 7. I don't know. I sort of feel like maybe the Thunder would have figured out how to show up, but they managed to shut down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and here we are. They beat them. I mean, they held the Thunder to 81 points. The lowest scoring game before that had been 80 points from the Lakers when they had one of their come-aparts. So it looked like the score looked like a college game for one team.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee, after a slow start, has won 13 of their last 16, though this last one doesn't count toward the standings. This was about three-pointers, right? I mean, Milwaukee outscored them 51-15. I mean, this was about the deep ball, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Damian Lillard had as many threes as the entire Thunder team. Charlotte, in this game. So, and unfortunately, this is kind of the NBA problem. I put that in quotes that Adam Silver has even publicly come out and talked about grappling with is the game and the approach on offense becoming too similar for everyone. But there's no doubt that was the difference last night. Damian Lillard led a 3-point barrage from Milwaukee that the Oklahoma City Thunder could not match, and we see plenty of games that get turned on their heads because the math behind the 3-point ball can affect games so quickly.
Totally, and I do think the Bucks defense was really good too. The Thunder had the number one defense, but the Bucks really showed up, so they limited the Thunder. I think the Thunder also got in their heads, and like if there's a team that's hot one night, if there's a team that just is hitting threes, there's really not much you can do. And that's where it kind of sucks, because it's like, okay, so Dame's gonna hit AJ Green hit an insane shot over Isaiah Hartenstein. It's like, all right, well, Isaiah, this big German boy, couldn't do much more than he did there, and yet this little guy managed to score anyway, and that it can be kind of defeating, I would think, for that team that is up against that. So yeah, I don't know whether it's something like, taking away the corner three or whatever the NBA might be thinking of doing. I personally love threes, but I do think you get to a point where you're like, well, this game is over. This game is simply over, and there's nothing that's going to change that when a team is scoring like that. I don't know. Senior, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, listen, I agree. I mean, if someone is hot in their three, that's why you wait for the playoffs, and playoffs is, a 7-game series. It can even out. I would imagine Milwaukee is not going to be 17 of 40 many times, shooting 42% from three-point land. So in a series, in a playoffs, I would imagine it would be different. But in a one-game test, yeah, the game can be over. What was a 5-point game in the second half, a 19-5 run? It's all of a sudden it's a 19-point lead for Milwaukee. They're draining threes. Their bench hit 7 of 15 threes. Their bench was just under 50% of the three. So, I mean, listen, congrats to Milwaukee. They're only one loss in two of these NBA Cups. Charlotte, let me ask you, last year when the Cup started, even some of the players didn't know when there was a Cup game. But then it grew into this thing that I got into, a lot of people got into. Was there the same kind of juice for it this year, do you think?
I mean, yes and no. I think last year it was, to me, more exciting, to be honest, because I was like, what is this? What are these courts? What are we doing? And I was so pleasantly surprised to see how into it I got. And I still loved it. Last night, yesterday, Tuesday, I was walking around being like, oh, cool. There's a big game tonight, because so much of sports are contrived anyway that why not make something else matter, which I think they've managed to do. And I think players really do. I think $500,000 per player is a very motivating thing for the non-superstar players. I think that works great. I think they want to go to Vegas. I think for a team like the Bucks, as I said, it's a really great chance to be like, hey, we heard everything you said and we're still here and we're good. I do think, though, I don't know, something felt a little weird to me. They were handing out a trophy with this whole big thing with little kids giving out medals. And I was like, this is a trophy for a regular season game. Is it imagine if there were a trophy after every regular season game. I know that it isn't. I know it doesn't count towards the standings, but it's one game in December, and it felt like I guess the PR campaign was showing to me, which is also fine. It was really fun, and I get that that's what they have to do.
And I think that's actually the more important part of the bigger NBA conversation that's happening. Because your point, Charlotte, last year, big celebration when the Lakers won to hear Darvin Ham, who was obviously with the Lakers at that point, is an assistant on this Milwaukee team, and kind of told them, hey, we did the whole champagne shower after the game last year, and then we dropped 10 of the next 13 and had a bad time. And so the Bucks kind of eschewed that normal celebration after. They said, hey, we got a long season, we got to get back to work. Giannis and them have tasted champagne after you win an actual championship. And so they kind of kept this in the proper context, but you hit on to me why I think this is important. Because as these conversations start to get had again, because ratings are down and we spend way too much time talking and focusing about that, and the three-pointer is something that Adam Silver is coming out and addressing himself and saying, hey, this isn't a problem per se, but we're always keeping an eye out for, is the play style becoming too cookie cutter? Because this is an entertainment product at the end of the day. I still think the biggest issue that the NBA faces is a volume issue. And to your point, making the players care. We're going to talk about that with the All-Star game coming up. Making the players care about these regular season games and making me feel. I remember I had a conversation about this with a play-by-play announcer once who does multiple sports and said it's hard to feel the same level of attachment you do to each and every game in a long season like the NBA or Major League Baseball that you do in a sport like football, where scarcity gives you fewer of these things to hold on to as a fan, as a viewer, and as a player out in those games. And so, Charlotte, I do think that what the NBA Cup that accomplishes that is more important than anything is creating games that did feel like they had stakes, because I still feel like that's the biggest obstacle the NBA has. The three-pointers can still be exciting. You still get within the body of a game so many opportunities for unique things to happen with as gifted as the players are now and as unique as some of these athletes are, that I think that's actually comparatively much less of a problem, quote unquote, than it is the counterpart of, hey, you've just got a surplus of content here, and making me care about each one day in and day out's the difficult task.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with you, Mike. Like I've thought for a long time, if you had designated days that the NBA played on, if you made it feel more like the NFL, and I understand too, like, look, baseball and basketball are games where those best of 7 series actually do end up mattering. So you want to say, here's a body of work that supports the best of 7 format. Okay. But with football, because of the way the sport is played, because of the kind of physicality needed, you really can't do that. So who's to say you couldn't do that for another team? Like, I think that we've talked ourselves into being like, well, but baseball, you need 120, and NBA, you need 80, 81. I can never remember, by the way. Is it 80? Is it 80?
I always
81?
do the same thing. 82, 83.
82, like,
82.
Like, why? Like, that's my point, though. Like, why are there 82? Like, that's the dumbest possible number. And I understand, too, owners want the revenue from the games. TV deals are built around. I get that. But I truly think more people tune in when you make something feel exclusive, especially in 2024, in 2025, when there is so much content all the time. You have to make something feel premium.
Yeah, Dan, I do think that's an attention span issue. And for the NBA, the reasons are historical. They are based on the records that exist that all these sports care about financially that Charlotte indicated there. It's what makes the All-Star game conversation kind of an interesting proxy for all this, Dad, as we get ready to see now the changes in the All-Star format coming up this season. And for anyone that missed it, what they're getting ready for in the NBA All-Star game is going to be as follows. You're going to have 4 teams playing 3 games to try and determine a champion. It's 3 teams of 8 NBA All-Stars and 1 team of the Rising Stars Challenge winners here, and they're playing first to 40-point games. Now, Shaq, Charles, and Kenny will draft the teams from the All-Star roster, and then the prize pool is a $1.8 million prize pool that pays the winning team's players $125,000 each. Done to try and curb some of the effort-based questions around the game, certainly the rampant scoring that was part of last year's game that finished off 211 to 186. So when you look at a game, Dad, where we're not as concerned with the history or the records or anything like that, how do you think that these changes are going to be received at the All-Star game?
Well, I think because it's the first year of change, it will have interest. And then we'll see how it goes, right? We'll see how exciting it is. You mentioned what the winning team gets. Quite honestly, it should be the winning team gets all the money and the losing teams get nothing. I mean, you want to, and these guys are all millionaires, but still, even at the Pro Bowl, when the Pro Bowl used to be the actual Pro Bowl that got serious in the fourth quarter because winning team got like 36,000, losing team got 18,000. Players who were making millions were concerned, trying to get the extra $18,000, mainly to pay off their bill of going to Hawaii. But still, what are ways to make it? That's what you're looking for, Charlotte. You're looking for ways to make it more competitive. So I don't know how well a first year of it will take us there, because it will be new. So it will have interest and people will watch. And then how much legs will it have?
I mean, I thought that the way the W did it, Team USA versus not Team USA, was really fun. I'm kind of like, why are we overcomplicating this? Like, I understand the idea of a tournament. I understand that that's how the NHL does it. And I do think that the smart thing here is to put the rising stars in. I think there's nothing more motivating than young players playing against older players that they've idolized, or older players being like, okay, I am still here, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I also think that one game where it's guys with a chip on their shoulder, even if they say they don't, like, can you imagine Jaylen Brown against and you could then have the international players? I don't know, but what do I know? Sure, let's have Chuck Kenny and Shaq pick some teams, and we'll see how it goes. That is what I'm actually most excited for. I want to see if there's drama. I want to see if players get really mad that Chuck or Kenny or Shaq did not pick them. I think that is going to be the juice that is worth the squeeze, guys.
The ultimate playground.
Because that was one of the most disappointing things they did away with, Dad, was the all-star draft where they would have the captains draft. They went back to the East-West format last year, and I thought that was a mistake. I thought having that little added bit of drama around this, because to Charlotte's point, what it comes down to is shame is a powerful tool. And right now, the NBA is trying to do their best to politely shame the players into giving more effort. We saw Barack Obama chastising guys on the Young Man in the Three podcast and trying to use all of that there, but there really is nothing like a group that is motivated and young people with tons of energy. That's why having that team that wins the Rising Stars Challenge, Dad, I think is the secret sauce to this.
Who is the last pick in the draft? And how bad will they feel being the last pick in the draft?
And why is it Jaylen Brown?
We need to start. I would say Charlotte's just rooting for continued slights as motivation against her Boston Celtics to try and make sure we put them in the right position to not only go out and win in the All-Star game, but to get the revenge on the world for the Olympic slights in the championship.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. All right, guys, Travis Hunter takes home the Heisman, but the internet not super happy about who he's taking the Heisman home to. So his fiance was allegedly not feeling it at a fan event. The internet explodes, tells Travis to run away, but there's a lot going on in this one. So thank God we have Charlotte Wilder of the Sports Gossip Show here to break it all down for us. So Charlotte, I don't know, I saw this and I was like, context is important. Kind of seems like some of this is a little clip being thrown out on the internet, taken out of context a little. Travis Hunter's come out and defended his fiance. She came out with an 8-minute apology response video. I don't know. We didn't listen to it because it was 8 minutes long.
Well, Jesse, that's what I'm here for. It feels really great to have a show where I'm like, oh, this is what I was built. Like my co-host Madeline Hill and I are, cracking our knuckles, seeing something like this, being like, all right, let's get into it. Basically, people are mad because Travis Hunter, the two-way player for Colorado, when he won the Heisman, his girlfriend, Liana Lani, did not stand up right away. And people thought she didn't look happy enough. People thought all of these things. And this is also because there was an Adidas event where Travis Hunter was signing autographs and taking pictures with fans. And there's a video where she was his girlfriend was sitting on the couch nearby, and someone panned to her, and people thought she said, "What am I supposed to do? Just sit here?" There were also things about like the timeline of their relationship or DMs, or that she'd left him on red, or like just kind of the dumbest stuff imaginable. But when you have when you have someone who won the Heisman, and like this is what people are talking about, and this is what the visual looks like. I went back and I watched these videos. I watched the Adidas one. I watched her reaction to his win. And I just think it's like the most contrived thing ever. She's very happy for him. I don't think people understand like an event like the Heisman, or a televised event that is that choreographed. Nobody really knows what to do. You don't know what to do. You don't know when to stand. You don't know when to sit. You don't know where the cameras are going to be. And, Liana came out and she was like, look, there was the reason I didn't stand up. There was a camera on Coach Prime, on Deion Sanders. I didn't want to be in the shot. He told me to stand up. I did. Travis comes back. I want him to have the moment with his family. So I sit down. Like, she was trying to be as respectful as possible is what she says. And I buy it, because this is just like, to say your girlfriend isn't happy when you win the Heisman because people read her body language in a weird way and they thought, and at the Adidas event, I don't think she said what people are saying. I don't think she said, what am I supposed to do? Sit here. So this feels like something that people want to get mad about. And I think when they see an athlete who is, on the rise, making money, it's very easy to be like, that woman's just along for the ride. Like, I'm going to defend Travis because she's just out for his money now. And it's like, what are we doing, everybody? That's my take, Jesse.
Yeah, and I actually agree with this, because he went on his stream and people were, talking about it. And he was like, to the point about at the event, he was like, that's not what happened at all. Half my family was leaving, half my family was staying. She was saying, okay, I guess I'll sit here and stay and not go back to the hotel with the family, blah, blah. A lot of stuff, yes, being taken out of context. Also, they're engaged, and haven't they been together for like 5 years? Like, yeah. She was there before all this happened, before he was on this wild ride. So she's standing by her man, and he's standing by his woman.
There you go.
Holy smokes. I mean, could my eyes not glaze over more with all of this? I mean, and then, Charlotte, you tell me, in this day and age of the internet and of social media, where it's a microwave society, she put out an 8-minute video where, she shouldn't have to explain to everybody what the hell's going on. I mean, she shouldn't have to do that. But because there are friggin' trolls out there, she felt she had to. But let's be honest, who's listening to an 8-minute video when people today, if it's more than 30 seconds, they're like, I'm done, I'm out.
I tell
Charlotte,
you, the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
The Daily Mail, and then they write it all down, and then you can read it much more quickly than it takes to watch an 8-minute video. No, I mean, I think that this is what it comes down to is like PR strategy, is how do you want to deal with something? And I'm always of the belief that saying less is probably the more powerful stance to take, because when you get down, someone dragged you into the mud, then you're just in the mud with them. And if and I understand like setting the record straight in certain ways. And I think that there are different ways that you need to do that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should, say more, but I think it comes down to personal preference. And that's what she felt like was the best way to handle it, Gojo.
I think what this comes down to, and the tie back into actual sports that I see in this situation and every situation, and maybe this is just a product of, continuing to get older. I'm not saying that I'm an old person, but just relative to the people that play the sports that we watch now, I'm a decade removed from most of these people. My peers who are playing sports are retiring after likely Hall of Fame careers at this point, and whatever they've done if they've been around this long. And so I watched this, and it is young people learning how to manage something that is in its very nature impossible to manage in this day and age, or closer to impossible than we give it credit to. And the amount of things that young people in their early 20s are being given the keys to as these multimillionaire athletes coming up through, and the responsibilities they're asked to shoulder are a lot. And we're watching in real time two people digest that all at once. The change in the level of attention and scrutiny that is going to surround them from here on out, because Travis Hunter has a skill set that's one of the most unique on planet Earth, and it's going to make him rich beyond his wildest dreams. It's going to allow him the opportunity to get into rooms he may not otherwise. But in this day and age, you have too much access. As we always say, we know too much about each other in 2024 going into 2025. And so for people that aren't used to that right now, and we see it all the time in this, we do a job that's forward facing, and we talk to people, and our lives are on display a bit more than most. And when you have people that come into that sphere and all of a sudden aren't used to that, that is a massive adjustment. And to me, that's kind of what we saw with this young woman in having to deal with it. And it sucks because you got people in business that shouldn't be theirs. We shouldn't be, none of us should be talking about this, and none of us should give a damn who Travis Hunter is dating. But there's a lot of sports fans out there that just hate women in general. And so any opportunity to make the problems that go on a woman's problem in this are going to be a chance they take. And so this is kind of where we wind up in this stuff, which sucks.
I said the exact same thing on the Sports Gossip Show. It's like, I think what it comes down to is a lot of people hate women. Also, though, to your point about this kind of pressure and this kind of age, like I was on ESPN's homepage, and it was like executives roundtable on Cooper Flagg. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that this kid, top recruit at Duke, going to be #1 draft pick from Maine, shout out Maine. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's still 17. Like this, there was a picture of his face with like business execs talk about Cooper Flagg's future, and there's a picture of his face. I was like, that is a kid who has not yet graduated high school for most people, and I was like, it starts to feel a little bit nutty.
Well, luckily, to clear our palate, we have the Aaron Rodgers Netflix documentary. I mean, that will obviously set everything straight, right?
Jeez.
I have to watch it. I'm so scared.
Oh, it's out today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Wow.
it's out. And if his most recent hit on the Pat McAfee show is any preview, boy, oh boy, is it going to be a doozy there as that continues to be a situation that I want nothing to do with whatsoever. So anyone who wants to enjoy that, feel free. I heard in it that Aaron Rodgers apparently makes the claim that when he's done football, we won't see or hear from him again, which I don't know at this point if I can necessarily buy into, Charlotte. That doesn't seem on par with what we've had, but whatever he wants, that would be my approach to being rich and famous. Is once I was done doing the thing here, I would like to go and be unbothered by most people in the process, but we'll see.
Aaron Rodgers said that on Pat McAfee. He was like, once I'm done playing, you won't hear from me. And I did a little thing on it, and someone in the comments on Instagram or TikTok was like, Aaron Rodgers is a guy standing in the corner saying, like, when everybody looks at him and he's like, nobody look at me. Like it's his whole shtick, and it has been the whole time. And I just think it's pretty hilarious to say, like, when I'm done, you won't hear from me. But here is a documentary about my life where I gave a film crew complete access. I hope you enjoy it. Like, how are we supposed to believe that?
I don't think we believe it.
I don't think most people do believe here, but that's show business, baby, and Aaron Rodgers certainly has enjoyed the show business angle more than the football angle so far this season based on the Jets' success. Coming up next, though, speaking of commitment to a bit, one actor's commitment to his role is actually landing him some real-life hardware. Next on GoJo and Golic. All right, let's finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. Download, subscribe, rate, and review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating as a gift this holiday season. And check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, where you can check out our interviews if you miss them live. Thank you to our guest today, Fran Brown, the Syracuse head football coach, for joining us in hour number 1. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star helping us preview Notre Dame and Indiana in hour 2. And, of course, our buddy Charlotte Wilder, who helps us finish out the show here as well, guys, as we get to this, that, and the third, which is presented by our friends at Knockaround Sunglasses here. Head over to knockaround.com and use promo code GoJo Golic to pick up your new go-to pair of polarized shades. Charlotte was sent some sunglasses by the folks at Knockaround, but loved them so much she took them to the car to wear to help her defeat the sun while she was on the road in New York, and doesn't have them with her now, or else she would look cool like us. So, Charlotte, welcome to the pack, but also you're kind of the odd man out today.
Yeah, I really messed up, guys, but they are amazing for the road. And I've really needed sunglasses, and my husband has been telling me to get sunglasses, so now I have them. So this is just proof of how much I love them.
See, she's putting them into action. Be like Charlotte. Take action. Go to knockaround.com. Use promo code GoJo Golic and pick up your new go-to pair of polarized shades. Plenty of different frame styles. Prices that won't break the bank. And you'll look really cool, too. Guys, let's get to this, that, and the third. Speaking of someone who always thinks they look cool, Tom Cruise was in the news recently. The longtime movie star was actually awarded a legitimate honor. The Navy's top civilian honor was awarded to Tom Cruise on Tuesday for, quote, his outstanding contributions to the Navy and the Marine Corps with Top Gun. Now, Dad, this actually reminds me of your place in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, where you are in the Hall of Fame as a distinguished American. So as someone that has received a similar honor here, how do you feel about sharing this station with the legendary Tom Cruise?
Not great, because I'd rather be in the Wrestling Hall of Fame as a wrestler, quite honestly. So I was at the and listen, I am honored to be honored in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I got it for being called the Great American, Distinguished American, because I brought recognition to wrestling through the radio and TV show I did at ESPN, because I wrestled in high school and college. So I kept it kind of in the limelight, and that's why I was put in the Hall of Fame. And Tom Cruise was given the Navy's Distinguished Public Service Award for, showing, publicizing dedication to the Navy, efforts in the film industry have increased public awareness to the Navy. I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan, but, I can't really rip this award because you're right, Mike. It is exactly kind of what I got on a lower level with the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. I'm not in it for the actual sport, but for promoting the sport, again, of which I'm very, very honored. But when you're sitting there at the ceremony listening to wrestler after wrestler give an acceptance speech on why they got in as a wrestler, and I'm sitting there talking about, yeah, I talked about it a lot. You know, it made me feel like, damn.
Yeah, I think it's
Charlotte, do you think they played Danger Zone while he was accepting the award?
I really hope so. I just like that this is like the movie award of, it's like he plays a soldier in movies, and then so they give him a little movie award, a little fake movie award for it's like it's all very cute. Congrats to Tom Cruise. I hope you find I hope you take your adorable medal and put it somewhere nice.
He also like does all his stunts and stuff, so I feel like he's like, yeah, I earned this. Like I jumped off the Burj Khalifa. Like, you know.
Jesse, there is no one that loves this award, I'm sure, more than Tom Cruise, given how hard he has gone in the paint on this front. So, yeah, there's no doubt Tom Cruise thinks he could have been in the Navy and been exactly what the Navy, probably a Navy SEAL, you know, for all that. Yeah, I don't know. We don't know if it's quite reached Mark Wahlberg levels of confidence in moments he wasn't a part of, but at the very least, it's damn close. Jesse, let's get to that and explore another sports story. What do we got?
Yeah, okay. Talk about drama here. So Cody Bellinger was traded yesterday to the Yankees, trying to fill those, Juan Soto holes, and there could be a little bit of drama involved in this one. The clubhouse might be getting a little bit awkward because apparently his wife, Mrs. Cody Bellinger, is Giancarlo Stanton's ex. So apparently they dated back in the day. She's a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model named Chase Carter. They apparently called it quits in 2019, which wasn't that long ago. So, I mean, Charlotte, the gossip, the tea, it is really hot.
This one's really good. This one's really good. I think everything will be fine. She's married to Cody Bellinger now. I think that everyone will be like, okay, well, this is how it is. I think when you're married, the ex thing is sort of like, all right, well, we all have a past. But I will say that when I was at Sports Illustrated in 2018 and 2019, and she was at parties with Giancarlo Stanton, like I remember when they were together, and it was just always sort of a buzzy relationship, and there was conversation about it. So I do wonder if coming back to New York, the center of people who like to be in other people's business too much, won't reignite just like a tiny, give us like one morsel and then we'll all move on.
Yeah.
That's really all you need in this one. Dad, I will save you from this and just say the Yankees continue to stay active in the market. They had already signed left-handed starter Max Fried and then traded for all-star closer Devin Williams after losing Juan Soto to the crosstown Mets. So I don't know if anything is necessarily going to fill the void that is left in their hearts from Juan Soto leaving town, and what a shot across the bow that was. But at the very least, the Yankees have not sat on their hands the way their Dallas Cowboy counterparts have in the NFL.
Listen, that's all great. I just wonder what happens when they all run into each other for the first time. It has to be a little bit uncomfortable, right?
Yes, because also it's like, who won the breakup? Who won it? Because, like, somebody won the breakup.
Even if she's not involved in when all three see each other, just when the two of them see each other in the clubhouse for the first time, there just has to be a little bit of awkwardness, right?
Yes.
It's bro code.
Well, I mean, as Ted Lasso showed us,
we don't talk about our feelings.
You can navigate a lot of these situations with grace and survive it, and everyone can get along just fine. Jesse, I want to move along to the third so we have time to talk about the truly important things in this world. Jerry Jones eating squirrel.
Yeah, this is just a follow-up to the Xavier Legette story. Eating raccoon, probably not super normal, but now Jerry Jones is setting the record straight. Apparently it is normal.
And I have eaten raccoon. And yes, it's not uncommon at all. I'll tell you something that is one of my favorites is squirrel. And it's wonderful, and my mother could do a great job of it. And we all had our favorite pieces, and my mom and I wouldn't even ask for the brain in a squirrel.
Oh, man.
and delicious. Seriously.
Jerry Jones has not eaten squirrel in 60 years. I'm sorry. No way. No freaking way.
I'm a regular guy from, just down home like the rest of you, cosplay. Also, he does like shoot wild boar out of his helicopter. So I believe it, but like, come on.
Yeah, no.
Did he say he ate squirrel brain?
Yep.
Yeah, he did.
Said it's delicious.
This is like tough guy macho. He's like, look how tough I
Yeah.
am. I eat the brains of squirrels. Like, please respect me at the contract table.
Yeah. It's like cosplay.
Trying
like
to
you
sound
said.
normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to sound
You're
normal.
right. You're right. Hasn't eaten in
mean-
6 years. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he hasn't had it in a while, but if you put a well-cooked squirrel in front of Jerry Jones right now, I do think the Arkansas in him would just rise to the top here and devour that thing relentlessly. I believe that even in the midst of all the things that we don't like about Jerry Jones, there's still enough Arkansas in that man to where if you gave him the opportunity now, he would jump at that thing. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm giving too much credit, Dad.
If he were alone, no shot. If he were out in public, he would probably do it for the public awareness. If he were alone or just with family, no shot he does it.
Yeah. Gross.
We can only hope then someone takes Jerry Jones, the ultimate showman, up on the opportunity in public and brings him some deep fried squirrel here. It's Texas. I'm sure you can find that somewhere. You can find our podcast there too. Download, subscribe, rate, and review it. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Maybe or maybe not eating raccoon and squirrel. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.